A lot I want to get to here, so let's just dive in. Now, as I'm recording this video, it is Saturday afternoon, August 30th. And yesterday, we got an important ruling from a federal appeals court on the Trump tariffs. They have struck down most of Trump's tariffs, saying that he had neither the constitutional nor statutory authority to unilaterally impose these tariffs. Now, the court put a stay on its order until October 14th. So the tariffs are still in place, giving the Trump administration time to appeal this to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court does not have to take this case. They could simply let the appellate court decision stand, but I expect them to take it. And if and when they do, they can put a further stay on the appellate court's order until they issue their ruling. So we're not going to see these tariffs actually paused anytime soon. Now, I just want to say a couple of things about this. First of all, the tariffs are just flatly illegal. Article 1 of the Constitution, which lays out the powers of Congress, specifically gives the power to impose tariffs to Congress. So Trump has no constitutional authority whatsoever to impose tariffs. So he would have to rely on statutory authority to impose these tariffs. The problem is for him that Congress didn't approve these tariffs. This was Trump doing it by executive order. And there is no law passed by Congress that Donald Trump can cite as authority for imposing these tariffs. Well, now, let me back that up. He does cite a specific statute saying, well, Congress gave me in this statute the authority to do these tariffs. The problem is for him that the statute that he cites says nothing about tariffs. It's one of these statutes that Congress passed. By the way, I hate these statutes and think for the most part they are unconstitutional, where they pass a law saying, well, if the president declares an emergency of some kind, then he can do X, Y, and Z on his own without having to come back to Congress. I think those things are unconstitutional. That's not the way it's supposed to happen, because then it's just up to the president to declare an emergency to do whatever the hell he wants. And that emergency declaration is essentially unreviewable. So it is basically Congress, in a sneaky sort of way, giving away its own authority. And that is not constitutional. Only Congress has Article 1 powers to do by legislation that which the president has no authority to do on his own. And these friggin' statutes where they say, yeah, if you say there's an emergency, then you can just exercise our power for us, instead of us having to do any work on our own. We like being on vacation. We like fundraising. We like to go to various events and have our ass kicked. We love going on Fox News and that kind of stuff. So if you think there's an emergency and you want us to do something, just go ahead and do it. That's okay with us. We don't want to have to come back and actually do work and draw up legislation and debate and vote. We don't want to do that. You just do it. That's unconstitutional, all right? At least in my opinion. However, the courts have broadly upheld that kind of thing before. So anyway, the statute, although it's one of these statutes that gives the president power to do something if he declares an emergency, imposing tariffs is not one of those things that this statute empowers him to do. So that's why this court and the lower court held that neither the Constitution nor any statute passed by Congress empowers the president to do this. Now, the concerning thing to me about this is that this was a 7-4 ruling. So there were 4 members of this court who thought that Donald Trump was within his authority to impose these unilateral tariffs. And that, I'm sorry guys, that's just blind partisanship right there. And so given that The appellate court, on the appellate court, there were 4 members siding with Trump. Who knows what happens when it goes to the Supreme Court? It's a good bet that there's 5 of them to rule in Trump's favor. Because this court has shown time and time again that even when they know something is wrong, if there is some argument, however ridiculous, if there's just some legal argument they can hang their hat on in order to rule in Trump's favor, then there's usually 5 of them willing to do that. So just because he's lost every time this has gone to court before doesn't mean that the Supreme Court is going to rule against Donald Trump. And honestly, I don't know if that's a bad thing. I'm of mixed feeling about this, I'm of 2 minds about this. On the one hand, it's clearly unconstitutional, and for that reason alone, the right thing to do is to, strike down Trump's executive order imposing these tariffs. However, and this is purely political, and I'm not suggesting that this is the basis upon which the court should act. It's not. I'm just thinking this through politically. If the court were to strike down, the Supreme Court were to strike down Trump's tariffs, that would actually, in the long run, be the best thing for Donald Trump. Now, he'll throw a fit, and he's too stupid to realize how this is actually beneficial to him, because he's just a dictator, and he wants to get what he wants, and if he doesn't, part of the tariffs is so that Donald Trump can exert power over other countries, to bully them. He's used it as part of the grift, and all of that. But politically speaking, it would be in his best interest for the court to strike these down. Because these tariffs have been and will continue to be devastating to the U.S. economy. And he is suffering already greatly in his approval from the American people on his job performance. And he's getting crushed. He's massively underwater on the economy and inflation and all of that stuff. So much of which is directly... Shouldn't have sat here. I thought it was sufficiently cloudy that the sun wouldn't be an issue, but I was wrong. Anyway, his tariffs are doing great damage. And if they are lifted, the economy will rebound. The stock market will take off. People's economic mood will change. It will immediately reduce inflation, at least to some degree, because, as we know, a tariff is a direct increase in the price we're paying on imported goods. And also not just imported goods, but domestically produced goods as well, for a variety of reasons. So the economy would benefit, and so he personally, politically speaking, would benefit tremendously by these tariffs being struck down. Conversely, however, I think that's, in the long run, not good for the country, because Trump and MAGA need to be thoroughly rejected. And that is an ongoing process right now, and Trump's doing most of the work by his disastrous policies, tariffs being chief among them. If the tariffs go and the economy improves, for a lot of Americans, the economy is the only thing they give a damn about. And if the economy improves because the court strikes down his tariffs, they're going to give him credit for that. And in the long run, that may be the most detrimental to the country, is if they think Donald Trump and MAGA are doing a good job. We need for people in this country to wake up and realize how big a mistake the re-election of Donald Trump and his personality cult, what a mistake that has been for the country, and to thoroughly reject it. I just worry that, Trump will essentially be saved from himself if they strike this down. And the people that voted for this criminal will have been saved from the results, from the consequences of their vote. And I just don't know if that's the best thing for the future of the country. It may be in the best interests of us, for the economy in the short term, but for the long-term health and future of the republic, I don't know that that's a good thing. Anyway, I want to read at least part of a post that was put up on Truth Social that Donald Trump retruthed, whatever you call that nonsense. It's a post by Mark Levin. Now, this guy, I really detest. But this guy is, he has a show on Fox News. He calls himself Mr. Constitution. They all over there call him Mr. Constitution. They hold him up as some sort of legal guru. And so he weighed in because, it's all gone to his head and he thinks he's this, he is the legal authority on everything. By the way, of course, he's defending Donald Trump in the tariffs. And since the court ruled against Trump, he's attacking the court. But if this were Joe Biden or any other Democrat who was unilaterally imposing tariffs, of course, Mark Levin would take the exact opposite position. He would be raising holy hell, saying that this person should be impeached and removed from office for flagrantly violating the Constitution. But since it's his orange God king doing it, and since, he makes his money, a lot of money, off of pandering to the cult, meaning defending everything Donald Trump says and does, of course, he's not going to criticize these tariffs in any way. But here's what he wrote. In all caps, the appellate court majority tariff decision was wrong. The appellate court majority that ruled against most of the president's tariffs has it wrong. Whether you like tariffs or not. See, he says that because he knows, he still pretends to be a conservative, and he knows that nothing about tariffs, especially imposing them unilaterally without any authority whatsoever, is not conservative in any way. But he still tries to, he worked for Reagan. He was the chief of staff to the attorney general during the Reagan administration. Reagan was profoundly anti-tariff. He was a free trader. He would be appalled at this. Levin knows all of this, but again, he makes money. So he makes money off of defending Trump to the cult. So, that explains everything you need to know about Levin. I was going to do his voice, by the way, but I don't know if my throat could handle it today. So he says, whether you like tariffs or not, what the hell, why don't I give it a try? Whether you like tariffs or not, the act at issue does not, in fact, grant the president broad power. Actually, I read that wrong. Forget it. It hurts, so I'm not going to do it. I've been coughing a lot today because of allergies. So let's do this again. Whether you like tariffs or not, the act at issue does, in fact, grant the president broad powers to declare an emergency. Even more, the Constitution under Article 2 grants the president broad powers to make foreign policy. Let me just stop this right here. So his argument is this act by Congress giving the president certain authority, tariffs are not one of them, if he declares an emergency, Levin says that act does grant the president broad powers to declare an emergency. So, no one's suggesting that it doesn't. Just because he declares an emergency doesn't automatically give him special powers. He still only has those powers given to him by Congress via a statute. Okay, so just because he grants an emergency, people think this is a thing, by the way. People think that if the president declares an emergency, that he could do whatever he wants. This is bogus. That's not a thing. Right? The Constitution says no such thing. So even if he declares some sort of emergency, there has to be some statute telling him what he can do, what powers he has. If he declares an emergency, he doesn't just get all kinds of special powers just for declaring emergency. So he says the act does grant the president broad powers to to declare an emergency. Okay, well, so what? That's not an issue. Even more, the Constitution under Article 2 grants the president broad powers to make foreign policy. Yeah, but you know what? This is their new thing, by the way, that the cult does. These people who don't they know nothing about the Constitution, but all they do is they just say Article 2. That's their thing. The president has Article 2 authority. How dare you say he can't do something? Because for some reason, that by saying Article 2, it dresses it up like in legalese for the dummies in the cult who don't understand anything about the Constitution or how any of this works. So if you just say Article 2, that's some sort of persuasive argument. Article 2 is what lays out the power of the president. He only has the powers that are specifically laid out in Article 2. Okay? And you know what you will not find in Article 2? It's generally accepted that the president has broad authority in foreign affairs. But you know what? You won't find that language anywhere. You won't find anything in Article 2 that says the president has broad authority to conduct foreign affairs. But you know what you will find in Article 1, which gives the power, lays out the powers of Congress? You will find a section of Article 1 specifically giving only to Congress the power to impose tariffs. So just citing some general, ambiguous, non-specific, non-enumerated power in Article 2 to conduct foreign affairs does not outweigh, or does not, trump, so to speak, the very specifically enumerated power in Article 1, giving only to Congress the power to impose tariffs. So this is just, it's an argument that it's a legally bogus, vacuous argument, but it sounds persuasive to stupid people, which is why he makes it. Okay, what else here? Moreover, judges should not be the final decision makers about such matters, as they're exercising authority that was never delegated to them, and they should not substitute their own policy preferences for the president's. Couple things there to deal with. This is not the court substituting their policy preference for the president. This has nothing to do about their policy preference. This is a red herring argument. It's bullshit. Of course, it's only the political branches, the branches that we elect, the president and Congress. It is they who have the power to make policy decisions. The court's not in the policy decision business. They're in the legal and constitutional decision business. And there's nothing in their opinion which talks about their own personal policy preferences. So that's a non-starter. But he says, judges should not be the final decision makers, as they're exercising authority that was never delegated to them. Well, that's not true at all. This is exactly the kind of authority that was delegated to them. Apologize for itching my nose, allergies. Article 3 of the Constitution, which lays out the powers of the courts, gives the courts the powers to decide cases and controversies. That's their constitutional role. And here, there is a case brought before them. There is a controversy. There is a disagreement between two parties that were brought to the courts through a lawsuit. Donald Trump imposed tariffs, and people challenging those tariffs saying he didn't do so legally. So we have a legal dispute whether or not the president actually has this authority. Now, going all the way back to 1803 in Marbury versus Madison, the most foundational precedent of the Supreme Court, in an opinion authored by Justice Marshall, Chief Justice Marshall. The court said in that case that it is the duty of the court, of the judiciary, to say what the law is. When there is a controversy brought to the court, an interpretation of the law or the Constitution is at issue, it is the final decision of the court to decide what the law says, to resolve that particular case or controversy. So the court ruling that Donald Trump in this case did not have any constitutional or statutory authority to impose tariffs unilaterally, the court is doing exactly what the Constitution empowers it to do. So when Levin says that they're exercising authority that was never delegated to them. That's exactly wrong. He knows this. He's not a stupid guy. He's a nasty little troll of a man. Actually, he's actually rather tall. But I prefer to think of him as a tiny little troll of a human being. His voice, to me, goes better with a diminutive, trollish kind of guy rather than a tall man like Levin is. So whatever. He's a small man in my opinion, however you slice it. Anyway, okay, so I don't want to go too much more into this. We'll talk perhaps more in the future about the constitutional and legal aspects of this. But by the way, just for those of you who are new here, as I got I don't remember what it was that I was talking about, but I had someone in the comments say, you know, because I guess she disagreed with me. She said, "Why don't you go talk to a lawyer?" I'm like, I am a lawyer. So just so that you know, those of you who are new here, I'm a lawyer, I'm a former prosecutor. That's why I talk about these legal issues quite in depth at times. Okay, I have several more things I'd like to get to here. Let's see how many of them I actually do get to. I can't get to all of this. So how about this? Did you hear about this $1.2 billion detention camp, concentration camp, if you will, being built in the Texas desert? Got an article here about that. Now that's bad enough, right? That we're even doing this. But on top of that, it's a complete mystery as to who this company is that's building it and why they were selected. It was this contract worth $1.2 billion to build this facility was given to a company named Acquisition Logistics LLC, a small business that has no listed experience running a correction facility and has never won a federal contract worth more than $16 million. The company lacks a functioning website and lists its address as a modest home in suburban Virginia, owned by a 77-year-old retired Navy flight officer, retired Navy flight officer. Strange. This sounds like corruption, on top of this just being just sick. A $1.2 billion detention facility. You know, we were actually deporting more people under Obama and Biden without having the need to spend billions of dollars on concentration camps here in the United States. Anyways, this whole thing is sick. And by the way, the most important thing to remember in all the news that I'm going to talk to you about today, because it's easy to get sidetracked, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. We need to not lose track of that, all right? With so much in the news, and I need to talk about some of this stuff, but we need not lose track of that point. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. We know this. Pam Bondi, his attorney general, told him that he was in the Epstein files. She had hundreds of agents scouring all the records held by the Department of Justice and the FBI looking for any reference of Donald Trump in the Epstein files. God only knows how many man hours were spent on that. They found those things and they told Donald Trump that he was in the Epstein files, which is in part why he is trying so desperately to change the subject. By the way, he's engaged in a bit of a little disappearing act over the last several days. And in fact, when I woke up this morning, on social media, there was like widespread speculation that he was no longer with us because he hadn't been seen in several days, and there's all these questions about his health swirling around with the bruising and everything else. So people were, since we hadn't seen him, were speculating that he was no longer with us. Well, it turns out, it appears that he is. The White House released a picture of him today, leaving the White House, apparently, as they said, on his way to, you guessed it, golf. So just to put that out there. Remember, Epstein, oh, the reason I brought that up is because this whole disappearing act could be, yet again, just another diversion or an attempted diversion to change the subject from Epstein. If they're talking about whether or not, you know, I'm still alive or if I'm in the hospital or where is he, I'd rather have them talk about that than talk about the fact that I'm in the Epstein files. So, you know, let's stay focused on that. Let's not forget even while we discuss other things. Okay, keeping in the same sort of subject matter here, going from the $1.2 billion detention camp in Texas to Alligator Alcatraz. Yeah, a federal judge has ordered that facility be closed. And according to an article I read, it may already be completely closed. And that Florida official said that they're going to have the inmates at Alligator Alcatraz down to zero. They'll have nobody within a few days. So let's keep. I want to bring this up just to remind people what this is about and how Republican politicians operate. Alligator Alcatraz was the brainchild of Florida Governor Meatball Ron DeSantis. And he did this because he's trying to keep his name out there. He's trying to stay relevant. You know, he's still trying to make up for his embarrassing performance in the Republican primary for president in 2024. And he desperately wants to be president. He wants to, he's obviously going to run for the nomination in 2028. And he's not a stupid guy either. He knows what plays with the cult. He knows what plays well with the Fox News audience. Cruelty plays well with the Fox News audience. Catchy little titles plays well. Locking up brown people, that's always a big winner. So he thought, hey, let me build a facility to house all these brown people in the Everglades where there's a lot of alligators, and we call it Alligator Alcatraz. Since Trump's never actually going to be able to house inmates in the actual Alcatraz. Remember that? Remember he said he was ordering that Alcatraz be put back in service? Not going to happen. The whole thing freaking stupid. And of course the media doesn't call him out about how stupid that is. I mean, the salt air and everything. They could barely keep the thing together just as a tourist attraction. It's the amount of money they're gonna have to basically rebuild the whole thing in order to make it a functioning prison. Is not gonna happen. And even if it were to happen, which it's not, he'd be long gone from office to whatever awaits him later by the time that facility were up and running. It's never going to be up and running. Anyway, I digress. So Meatball Ron, what the freaking heck was that? Meatball Ron thought, you know what? I can build a facility to house brown people in the Everglades, and I can give it a name. We'll call it Alligator Alcatraz. It'll give me an opportunity to go on Fox repeatedly and talk about this, and I can play up the cruelty. You know, I could talk about if these people manage to escape, then they'll get eaten by alligators. Oh, and the cult would love that. They would absolutely love if some brown people got eaten by alligators because of me, because of Meatball Ron DeSantis. And this should put me in good position to win the Republican nomination in 2028. That's what this was all about. That's entirely what it's about, nothing else. And the same reason that Donald Trump jumped on that. He heard that Meatball presents it to Trump, and he thinks it's a great idea because then he gets to talk up the same thing, right? Pandering to the cult. So much of what they do is just about pandering to the cult. And he spent, looks like $250 million, $250 million constructing this. And it was an operation for what, a couple of weeks before a federal judge orders that it be shut down. But he doesn't care. He got what he wanted out of it. He used $250 million of taxpayer money from the people of Florida, used that $250 million, and used it for PR, for himself, to set himself up to run for president in 2028. That's what it's about. Now, do you think that the Republicans in Florida are going to be angry about that? No. He's giving them what they want. It doesn't matter. Take my money. Take my money, and I want to be entertained. So you take all my money, you build this thing. I don't really care if it ultimately houses anybody or not. What I want is to be able to watch Fox News and hear it being talked about all the time. And then I can get to go to sleep at night and fantasize, dream about brown people getting eaten by alligators. So please take my money and do it. I don't really care. So just another perfect example of how the Republican Party and the right-wing propaganda money-making machine works. Okay, what else? Can't cover all of this stuff. J.D. Vance already talked about this, saying some weird stuff about how he's ready to be president and all this stuff. You add that to the speculation about Trump's health, he doesn't seem well at all. I mean, he really doesn't. By the way, I told you, people thought maybe he's no longer with us, but then he turns up to go golfing. And the photo they showed of him, it was not a close-up photo. It was taken at some distance, and so when you try to zoom in on it in any way, it's very pixelated. It's a far away image, and that was released by the White House. He didn't go up to the cameras as he often does before going somewhere. He just went straight. The car was parked right next to a door, so he really only had to come out a couple of feet from the door, from the White House, and into the vehicle. And the image that was released by the White House, he doesn't look good. And it's even questionable. I'm not putting a conspiracy theory out there, but just to be honest with you, first thing I thought was, is that even him? He looked a little different. Granted, he looks different like every time I see him. He looks worse and worse and worse. And I hadn't seen him. None of us have seen him in a few days, so it's not all that surprising that he kind of looked different. But he looked different, and he had the stupid MAGA hat pulled down tight on his head, so you couldn't really see much of his face. You saw a whole lot more of the fat under the chin. And I'm thinking, you know what? I don't know if I'm even buying this as a proof of life. If you had taken, it looked like, or it could have been the case, if you went to, an old folks home and found some guy sleeping in the corner and, promised him some tapioca pudding if he would take a walk with you, some guy that, vaguely looks like Donald Trump, if you put the MAGA hat on him and you put one of these Trump shirts on him and you dress him just like Donald Trump and pull the hat down tight, I don't know. I think you could pass a lot of people off as Donald Trump. We know world leaders have body doubles and stuff. I don't know. I'm not saying it wasn't Trump. It probably was Trump, but I'm just telling you, he looks so horrible. That was actually the first thing that popped in my mind. Okay, what else do we have here? Medicaid. So if there happens to be any Trump voters watching this video, and if you are a senior on Medicare, you will be happy to learn. I can only assume you'd be happy to learn this because this is what you voted for. Donald Trump is beginning to ration Medicare. They're implementing a program where they're going to start rationing care. If you insurance companies do this, and some of these Medicare supplemental programs do this as well, where they have to pre-approve everything, and they can deny you, just like private health insurance screws everybody. The government is looking for ways to screw you too through the Medicare program. So you thought, now that I'm on Medicare, that's not going to happen to me anymore. Well, you voted for Donald Trump, so now it looks like it is going to happen to you. So they've started a pilot program in a few select states, Oklahoma being one of them, one of the reddest states in the country. Pretty much everyone in Oklahoma voted for Donald Trump. I know that's a gross exaggeration, but you get the point. So I'm sure they're very happy to learn that seniors on the Medicare program in Oklahoma are some of the first people in the country to have their care rationed. So the government is going to decide in advance, before you get a doctor's visit or any kind of treatment authorized or whatever, they're going to decide if you qualify or not. So they're going to do this. They're going to ration it. They're going to start denying you the health care that you thought you were entitled to under the program. No, they're going to tell you no, that they're not covering it. And you get to be the tip of the spear in this, you people in Oklahoma. You get to be the first to have your Medicare benefits cut by the guy you voted for. So congratulations to all of you. I'm always happy when people in a democracy get what they voted for. And you Medicare recipient Trump voters are going to get what you voted for. Have you seen what the National Guard is doing in Washington, D.C.? Because the crime is so bad there that Trump had to send the National Guard to deal with crime. And it's so bad that, you know what he's got them doing? Gardening, landscaping. They're raking up leaves. They're putting mulch down. That's the way he treats our National Guard. He takes them away from their family and orders them to picking up garbage too. Forgot about that. Picking up garbage, raking leaves, cutting grass, putting down mulch. What a disgrace. But hey, that's it's all for the show. All for the show. They're doing the bidding of the Orange God King. Oh, did you hear this? This was good. Did I print this out? I think I did. Oh yeah, I did. The president of Portugal called Donald Trump a Russian asset. I'm not going to read this article. This is from Yahoo News. Citing Trump's soft posture on Russia, Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa said, quote, "The supreme leader of the world's largest power is objectively a Soviet or Russian asset. He functions as an asset." Well, indeed he does, Mr. de Sousa. How pathetic is it that the President of the United States is, and they all think this, everybody knows this, the only people who don't recognize this are members of Trump's cult. Everybody else does. Every other leader in the world, people all over the world, they're not part of the cult. Anyone who's not part of the cult sees clearly that this guy is a Russian asset. And kudos to the president for stating the obvious, and I don't mean that as a put down, stating the obvious. It's obvious to everybody. Just few people have the guts to say it, not him. So good for him. Oh, Las Vegas. Here's another heartwarming story for those of you who voted for Donald Trump, getting what you want here. Las Vegas is dying. Have you seen the pictures coming out of Las Vegas? Empty streets. Like no one's going there anymore. In fact, I think I have an article on that one too. Oh yeah, I just want to read one quick sentence from this for you. Harry Reid International Airport, Las Vegas's main airport, located just a few miles south of the Strip, has now experienced 6 consecutive months of decreasing passenger traffic. So people aren't going to Las Vegas anymore. Fewer and fewer people are going. Keeps decreasing over the last 6 months. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to line up almost exactly with when Donald Trump took office. Within a few weeks of Donald Trump taking office, the economy has been crashing, and fewer and fewer people have been going to Las Vegas. So the first thing I thought of when I read this was, what are you thinking about all those no tax on tips? Because you remember why Donald Trump did this, and of course that's almost entirely a scam. It's going to benefit very few people, and the benefit of it is capped. And so this really isn't going to save many people very much in taxes at all. But the reason why he did this no taxes on tips promise, remember this man was trying desperately to stay out of prison, and that's why he was running again. And so he was making ridiculous promises to every group he can think of. And Nevada was an important, it's one of the swing states, really. And so the hospitality industry in Las Vegas, which, if you're talking about Nevada, it's Las Vegas, Las Vegas, Las Vegas. The hospitality industry in Las Vegas is huge. lot of people working for tips in Las Vegas. So he made this ridiculous promise to win Nevada. That's what this is all about. It was about winning their electoral votes. So he made this promise, no tax on tips. He pretended to fulfill that promise with the big, beautiful piece of shit bill, which is just mostly just a scam. But all those people in Las Vegas who now aren't getting any tips because business is drying up in Las Vegas because the guy they voted for, because he made them a promise of no tax on tips, is destroying the economy. So the no tax on tips isn't going to benefit you very much if you don't have a job or if you're not making any tips. And it's not like people were really reporting tip income anyway. But, you know, there's no tourists. There's no tips. So, you know, again, I'm always happy to see people in a democracy get what they vote for. So the people in Nevada, in Las Vegas specifically, who voted for Donald Trump, you got what you voted for. Now, the rest of you, normal people who did not vote for this, I feel very badly for you because you're getting screwed too. But you didn't vote to be screwed. You know, other people, the people who voted for Donald Trump in Las Vegas, they did. They voted for this. So we can at least be happy for them. They're getting what they voted for. Now, better not hear them complain about this, because you don't get to vote for something and then complain about it when you get your way. You wanted this, so you should be happy. Enjoy it. What else do I have here? I can put that one down. I'm going to need to be wrapping this up. There's no way I'm getting to all of this. I saw an article with some polling data, this was from The Hill, of the support for Gavin Newsom since he has taken on this new posture, standing up to Trump much more aggressively, mocking him, which is just friggin' beautiful. Oh, I just saw a post about Gavin Newsom mocking Donald Trump. It was something like, Gavin Newsom just passed a cognitive test by saying, man, woman, camera, TV, Trump is in the Epstein files. It's just like, oh, that is so great. Anyway, since he has been mocking Donald Trump so effectively, he's been shooting up in the polls among likely Democratic voters in the primary, for the presidential primary for 2028. But there's something else that caught my eye in this article. Let me just read a little bit here. An Emerson College polling survey released Friday showed 25% of Democratic primary voters saying they would support Newsom as the nominee, a jump from 12% that he received in a similar poll in June. Person in second place, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. He received support from 16% of respondents, consistent with what he had received in June. Now, that's the thing I want to comment about Pete Buttigieg. First of all, let me say this. I think that Pete Buttigieg is one of the most brilliant and gifted politicians in this country, period. Incredibly impressed with him. He can speak to any issue authoritatively, persuasively, with deep knowledge of just about everything he talks about. Everything that I've heard him talk about, he seems immensely knowledgeable on whatever subject it is. He says it in a way, he speaks in a way that I think he can make his point to virtually anyone. He can take complex issues and explain it in simple terms. Just brilliant. He's fearless. He goes on Fox News. He takes these people on. He'd be a fantastic candidate. And this is the part that I hate having to say. He would be a fantastic candidate, but for the fact that he's gay. Now, that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. But sadly, we live in a country in which it does. Now, we just came off an election in which people will tell you Donald Trump won because this country, I've heard it, if I heard it once, I heard it a million times. Trump won because this country is racist and sexist. And there simply were too many people in this country who would not vote for a black woman, period. And I think to a very large degree that that's true. There's obviously other things that were at work in that last election, but that certainly was one of them. This is a bigoted country. Not everyone, obviously, but there are tens of millions of just abject bigots in this country. And I think we would all agree on that, right? So if that is true, that there are millions of people in this country who simply would not, under any circumstances in the year 2024, vote for a black woman for president, do you not recognize that there are similarly millions of people who will not vote for a gay man for president? I hate that that's true, but this is about winning elections. And as fantastic a candidate as I think, and as impressive a person as I believe Pete Buttigieg to be, this is about winning elections. And for the same reason, or in part the same reason that Kamala Harris lost that election, and maybe, the same factors are at work with Pete Buttigieg. In fact, I think there's probably more people who would refuse to vote for a gay man with a husband to be president than would have voted for Kamala Harris. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have statistics on the level of bigotry and which groups that people in this country hate more. But there are tens of millions who hate minorities, who hate women, who hate female minorities, and there are similarly a large number of people in this country who hate gay people. And that's just a fact. That's just a fact. I don't think we're... And by the way, so anyway, what do you think about that? Anyway, as an aside, just because you should expect it, Obergefell, the gay marriage decision from the Supreme Court from, what year was it? 20, whatever, I can't remember the specific year. Anyway, that decision is going bye-bye. Just want you to prepare for it. The Supreme Court, I'm sure, is just looking for the right case to take in order to overturn that decision. If they overturned Roe versus Wade, there's no chance that they're not going to overturn the gay marriage decision. Just prepare. We'll talk about it more later, but just so you know that that's coming and you're not surprised by it. That case is going. What else do I have here? I've already gone too long. I'll just say this. Wall Street Journal's reporting on the higher prices that are coming for staples, staples of life that people buy all the time, every week. Prices of those are dramatically increasing, in large part, but not completely, but in large part to Donald Trump's tariffs. And this is why, this is a good place to end, because it continues what I started with, the tariffs and the politics of the tariffs. This is why I say that the court, if the Supreme Court were to overturn Trump's tariffs, it would actually be the best thing for Trump politically, even if he's too stupid to realize it. And it would be the best thing for the American people in terms of the economy. But because the economy would improve, perhaps dramatically, and almost instantaneously in certain respects, if the court were to strike down his tariffs, Trump would get the credit for that. Trump would get the credit, and his popularity would probably go up, even as he is being struck down by the Supreme Court for violating the Constitution. His approval would probably go up over time because of the benefit to the economy. And while that would be good for us in our lives, to have an improving economy and lower inflation and all of that, in the long run, if Trump and MAGA get credit for this, that would be perhaps detrimental to the country in the long run. If we're going to survive as a republic, then the people of this country need to wake up to what a disaster this man is and understand what a huge mistake it was voting for him and his fascist personality cult, and to reject them going forward. if they credit him for an improving economy because his tariffs are struck down, it's going to make it all the more difficult for us to convince people what a disaster he is. Anyway, you get the point. Much more to talk about. I didn't even get through everything I wanted to talk about in this video. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. And by the way, in the future, I haven't been able to sort of have my schedule normalize yet. A lot of things going on in my life right now. But my intention for this channel is to do it at least 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday would be a long video, 45 minutes to an hour or so, to cover a wide variety of things that are going on in the news. Planning that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm able to stick to that, or I might have to do it 5 days a week. I don't know. Sometimes, there's so much. We're being bombarded with so much shit on a daily basis. I may simply need to do it more frequently just to cover all this stuff. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll talk to you again soon.